We use it every day, we think about it constantly, we stress over it, we celebrate it. But what exactly money? It's fascinating when you think about it. That crumpled dollar bill in your pocket, those numbers in your bank account, they represent value. But where does that value come from? The truth is, money has transformed over time. It's evolved from physical objects like gold coins to digital entries in a vast, interconnected financial system. Understanding this evolution is key to understanding the global economy and how it impacts our lives. Imagine a world without money, a world where the concept of currency doesn't exist, and people have to rely on direct exchanges to get what they need. This was the reality for early human civilizations. How would you trade for the things you need? You might have to trade a basket of apples for a loaf of bread, or a bundle of firewood for a piece of meat. This system of direct exchange is known as bartering. Early civilizations faced this dilemma, relying on the barter system. Bartering was the primary method of trade, and while it worked to some extent, it had significant limitations. Need a new clay pot? Trade some of your grain for it. But what if the person with the pot didn't need grain? The barter system required a double coincidence of wants, meaning both parties had to want what the other was offering. Want a new tunic? Hand over some livestock. You get the picture. The inefficiency of bartering became more apparent as societies grew and the range of goods and services expanded. Bartering was inefficient and inconvenient. It was time-consuming and often frustrating, as finding someone who had what you needed and wanted what you had could be a challenge. What if the potter didn't need your grain? Or what if you had something valuable like a pig but nobody wanted it at that moment? The limitations of bartering were clear. What if nobody wanted your prize pig? Enter currency. The need for a more efficient system led to the creation of money. People began to use objects that had inherent value and were widely accepted as a medium of exchange. People started using objects with inherent value, like shells, beads, or salt, as a medium of exchange. These items were portable, durable, and had a recognized value, making trade much easier. This was more practical, but it still had limitations. The value of these items could vary, and they weren't always easy to divide or transport in large quantities. Then came metal coins. Durable, divisible, and relatively scarce, metals like gold and silver became the gold standard, pun intended, for centuries. These metals were universally accepted, easy to carry, and could be divided into smaller units, revolutionizing trade and laying the foundation for modern economies. The story takes an interesting turn with the emergence of goldsmiths. These skilled craftsmen were not only experts in creating beautiful jewelry and artifacts, but also became pivotal figures in the financial world. Their shops, filled with precious metals and intricate tools, became the first informal banks. People would deposit their gold with these craftsmen for safekeeping, trusting them due to their expertise and secure facilities. The goldsmiths' reputation for honesty and security made them the go-to choice for safeguarding valuable assets. In return for their deposits, customers would receive a receipt, a simple piece of paper that acknowledged the amount of gold stored. This receipt was more than just a proof of deposit. It was a promise that the goldsmith would return the gold upon request. Over time, these receipts began to be used as a form of paper money. People realized that instead of retrieving their gold, they could simply trade these receipts. This innovation marked the beginning of a new era in commerce, where paper could represent physical wealth. After all, why lug around heavy gold when a piece of paper representing its value did the trick? This convenience led to the widespread acceptance of paper money, making transactions easier and more efficient. Goldsmiths, noticing they had a surplus of gold, started lending it out to borrowers, charging interest. This practice was the precursor to modern banking. By lending out gold, they could earn a profit, and the borrowers could invest in their ventures. This was the genesis of fractional reserve banking, a system where banks lend out more money than they physically possess in reserves. The goldsmiths realized that not everyone would come to claim their gold at the same time, allowing them to lend out a portion of the deposits. It was a risky gamble. The entire system relied on the trust that not all depositors would demand their gold simultaneously. If that trust was broken, it could lead to a catastrophic bank run, where everyone would rush to withdraw their gold, leading to financial collapse. What if everyone came asking for their gold back at the same time? This fear was not unfounded, as history has shown several instances of bank runs causing widespread panic and economic turmoil. But it was a gamble that paid off, laying the foundation for modern banking. The system of fractional reserve banking allowed for greater economic growth and the development of complex financial systems. It enabled banks to support large-scale projects and investments, driving progress and innovation. The evolution from goldsmiths to modern banks is a testament to human ingenuity and the constant quest for more efficient ways to manage and utilize wealth. Today, the principles established by those early goldsmiths continue to underpin the global financial system, demonstrating the enduring impact of their pioneering efforts. Here's where things get really interesting. Today, banks don't need vaults overflowing with gold to create money. They do it digitally, with loans. When a bank gives you a loan, it doesn't hand you a stack of cash. Instead, it credits your account with a deposit, essentially creating new money. This money enters circulation when you spend it. The catch? This newly created money comes with an equal amount of debt, the loan you have to repay with interest. This system, while efficient, has profound implications for the economy. Section 5. The inflation equation. Too much money, too few goods. Imagine a small island with only 10 coconuts. If everyone suddenly has twice as much money, those coconuts will become much more expensive. This, in a nutshell, is inflation. When the money supply grows faster than the supply of goods and services. While some inflation is normal in a growing economy, excessive money creation can lead to runaway inflation, eroding purchasing power and destabilizing economies. Central banks try to walk a tightrope, controlling the money supply through interest rates and other monetary policies to keep inflation in check. Section 6. The National Debt Dilemma. How governments borrow and spend. Governments need money to fund public services, infrastructure projects, and social programs. These services are essential for the well-being of citizens and the smooth functioning of society. Public services include healthcare facilities like hospitals, educational institutions such as schools, and emergency services like fire stations. Infrastructure projects can range from building and maintaining highways to developing public transportation systems. Social programs might include welfare benefits, unemployment insurance, and other forms of social security. All these initiatives require substantial financial resources. But where does this money come from? The primary sources of government revenue are taxes, fees, and fines. Taxes can be levied on income, property, sales, and various other activities. Fees might be charged for services like issuing licenses or permits. Fines are penalties for violating laws or regulations. However, these sources of revenue are often not enough to cover all the expenses. Taxes are part of the equation, but often, governments spend more than they collect in revenue. This discrepancy between revenue and expenditure leads to budget deficits. A budget deficit occurs when a government spends more money than it brings in during a given period. To bridge this gap, governments need to find additional sources of funding. This leads to budget deficits, which are financed by borrowing money. Borrowing allows governments to continue funding their programs and services without immediate cuts. However, borrowing also means that the government is incurring debt that will need to be repaid in the future. Enter government bonds, essentially IOUs issued to investors. These bonds are a way for governments to raise money by borrowing from individuals, institutions, and other governments. When investors buy these bonds, they are essentially lending money to the government. These bonds come with a promise to repay the principal plus interest. The interest rate on these bonds can vary based on the terms of the bond and the creditworthiness of the government issuing them. Investors are attracted to government bonds because they are generally considered low-risk investments. As governments continue to borrow, the national debt, the total amount owed by the government rises. The national debt is a cumulative total of all the budget deficits that have been financed through borrowing over the years. It is an important indicator of a country's financial health. While some debt can be healthy for economic growth, excessive debt can have serious consequences, including higher interest rates and slower economic growth. High levels of debt can lead to increased borrowing costs for the government, which can crowd out private investment. Additionally, if investors lose confidence in a government's ability to repay its debt, it can lead to a financial crisis. Therefore, managing the national debt is a critical task for governments to ensure long-term economic stability. Section 7. Bonds, loaning money to the powers that be. So, you've got some extra cash and you're feeling patriotic. What better way to show your love for your country than by buying government bonds? It's like lending money to your cool aunt who always pays you back with interest. Governments issue bonds to raise money. You buy a bond, and in exchange, the government promises to pay you back the principal amount plus interest over a set period. It seems pretty straightforward, right? But here's the thing. The more debt a government racks up, the riskier those bonds become. Section 8. A better way forward. Rethinking money for a brighter future. Our current financial system, while impressive in its complexity, is not without its flaws. We've seen how money creation can lead to inflation, and how government borrowing can create unsustainable levels of debt. So, what's the solution? Some economists and policymakers argue for alternative systems that give governments more control over money creation, potentially reducing our reliance on debt-based financing. Others propose innovative solutions like digital currencies issued by central banks. The future of money is uncertain, but one thing is clear: we need to rethink our financial systems to ensure a more stable and equitable future. Section 9. Investing in our future. Putting money to work for good. Imagine a world where money creation wasn't just about enriching banks or fueling government spending. What if we could harness this power to address society's most pressing challenges? Think about it. Instead of being trapped in a cycle of debt and inflation, money could be directed towards building sustainable infrastructure, investing in education and healthcare, and supporting small businesses. It's a bold vision, but one worth striving for. By reimagining our relationship with money, we can create a world where prosperity is shared, and everyone has the opportunity to thrive.